Happy Halloween, everyone. We watched 3 new entries in 3 long-running franchises for Halloween. None of them have anything to do with the Halloween movies.
Well, and all of them are long-running franchises that decided to say, fuck it, video on demand's okay, I guess.
Also, one of them is arguably new. One of these movies we first saw a trailer for, I don't know, back in the 90s.
Like, I feel like when I first started seeing trailers for that one, I was worried about, like, man, being in my 30s. I'm 34 now.
That's Amityville The Awakening, but we'll talk in order of how we watched these. Tonight we watched Cult of Chucky, Leatherface, and Amityville The Awakening. So we might as well jump into Cult of Chucky first. Cult of Chucky you can watch on Netflix right now, and like all the other ones, it's written by Don Mancini. He also directed this one too.
And also felt the need to point out that it's based on characters created by Don Mancini.
Based on characters created by fucking me.
This is me. This is all me every time. I feel like if I saw a Puppet Master movie and it was like it's like based on, you know, characters by Charles. I know. All of this is him. Every movie he has is him.
The plot of this is that Fiona Dourif is the lead in this again, and it's picked up with her in a mental institution. So that's where it primarily takes place. Only Chucky has now figured out that there can be multiple Chuckies. He can possess himself into various different other Chucky dolls, and so that's really kind of the setup here. Yeah. I'm curious what you thought of this, because you haven't seen Curse, and this is a direct sequel to Curse of Chucky.
Yeah, it didn't really waste any time with, you know, like a previously on the Child's Play series. They're even calling it that anymore, the Chucky series at this point, I guess. Yeah. But, yeah, so it just kind of launched into things. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, I'm hearing talk of characters that I've never seen, who never show up.
I had to kind of catch you up on that a little bit. Like, because I do like... Now, this is a series where there hasn't been, like, a single one that I've just outright disliked or hated by any means. There's ones that I certainly like better than others. I could say which one my least favorite would be, certainly. But one thing I did always respect about this series is that while it's certainly loose with its continuity, and that's putting it lightly, none of them are really rebooted necessarily. They all are, each one has happened before. It's not like, oh, Bride of Chucky comes out and it erases 2 and 3, or, you know, Curse of Chucky comes out and it erases all of them since the first one. No, like, now the tones might be a bit different, but everything that you previously saw happened and is addressed in some way in the ones that follow. I always liked that and respected that about it, especially in Curse, which I had my problems with that movie, but I overall enjoyed it. Like, it was kind of moody and almost shot giallo-like, and it was back to being a little darker, and they did some creepy things with the doll.
Well, and because I remember with that one, it was originally supposed to be a reboot, but then I was confused by it because it's like, whenever they were first talking about it being a reboot, they're like, oh, but it's still going to be written and directed by Mancini. It's still going to have, you know, like Stephen Dorff as the voice. Brad Dourif, sorry.
You're jumping ahead. That's a different movie later.
We had too many movies tonight. But, like, so it's written and done by all the same people. I'm like, why are they rebooting it then? Like, you're just making a sequel.
Oh,
I liked it. Then they're just like, okay, screw it, it's a sequel. We'll just kind of, like, try some new tricks, though.
No, it is, and I respected that about it. It's easy to just reboot something or to start from a previous checkpoint. I liked how it kind of went back to a slightly darker tone, but it still kept in continuity with stuff like Seed and Bride of Chucky and things like that. And this one...
And especially because at this point in time, like, it's really hard for any of these franchises to still be going with their original setup. Like it's... I mean, everything's been kind of like restarted somewhere in there at least once, or one that's considered like a soft reboot, or ones that you're like, well, these aren't really in continuity with the other ones. Like, for it to still be like the same going through is like, that's honestly kind of impressive at this point.
Yeah, I mean, hell, especially when you compare it to the fact that we're now at a point where Laurie Strode has died more than Michael Myers has. But in the case of Cult of Chucky, there's things I like about it just fine. It was a movie. Like, there's multiple Chuckies in it, and that was interesting. I like the fact that these movies do try to add different things to them. They add different elements, even if something might not, like, even if something might not make sense compared to what we've seen previously in some of these movies. Like, I like that they try to add a little bit to the mythology here, that they are trying to maybe grow. The story is at least going somewhere. It may not make any fucking sense, but it's going somewhere. Like, this movie, it's not a rehash of any of the previous ones. Seed wasn't a rehash of a previous one. Neither was Bride or Curse of Chucky. And neither is this, really. Which is maybe kind of saying something, because I think my favorite of the sequels are probably 2 and 3, which are certainly, like, more like in common with trying to do the first one again a little bit, but
with that factory shit at the end of 2.
The factory shit, dude, the haunted house shit in 3, and like the putting the like real bullets and the fake bullets for the paintball fight, like that shit is great. And I was they've never mentioned, unless I'm forgetting, they've never mentioned, I'm surprised they've never brought back Tyler from part 3, the black kid who he was trying to get his soul into. Hell, if there was one thing that annoyed me about Curse, is that they completely...
Maybe he'll be in the next one.
It would not surprise me. Like, Curse annoyed me, like, when they completely, like, forgot Eddie Caputo, his partner from the first one, exists. There's a flashback to him as Charles Lee Ray in Curse of Chucky that like leads up to him being chased by Chris Sarandon, and they just completely forget that like Eddie Caputo was a thing.
Going it alone, no one else here with me.
Yeah, dude, like seriously, like that like really annoyed me about that fucking movie. This one, it's a mixture of things that I like, and then stuff that kind of annoys me a little bit. Like, there are really kind of creative shots in the movie. Like,
it seems like it at a lot of points, like they had like a good cinematographer on hand, not all the time.
Yeah.
But some of the time they do like these really cool like artsy shots, whether they're doing sort of like a push in or a pull out, or you know, just like odd things like filming the whole thing like top down as somebody's going through a hallway. You know, just interesting shots. And then at other times they're like photoshopping the sky in.
Yeah, they'll be really cool in moody hallway shots where the lights are kind of flickering off one by one as it goes down in the hall. Even then, the movie's a little too hyper HD polished for my taste. I would like a little bit of grit to this.
Well, and it doesn't help that the entire thing looks like it takes place inside of like an iPhone.
Like it's lit
everything
like
is just
that.
Like ultra bright white, just flat white walls, floor, ceiling, like recessed lighting to where you can't ever like see where the light's coming from. It's just bright as shit everywhere.
Yeah.
It's too polished, and then whenever you like film it way too clean, then it's just like the whole thing just looks so sterile.
You're right, and it's not a look I like. It's not a look I like in horror films, especially.
Like some interesting textures I think could have really helped out, because honestly, like the main room that felt like it was an interesting place to be filming any scenes in was like her doctor's office, which doesn't match the entire rest of that building at all.
No, and and then it'll, like you said, it'll cut to an establishing shot, and the sky will have these like CGI'd clouds and a giant moon. Like, why did you do that? It could have been just an establishing shot, and now all I'm looking at is this fake effect you've thrown in there.
Yeah, it's like they just suddenly, like, oh, we need to set up that it's, you know, like nighttime outdoors here, but then everything from the horizon line up is fucking Evil Dead 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why? Why was that the necessary thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like an effect I could pull off on, like, Pinnacle 12, and that shouldn't be in this movie that I'm watching right now. Like,
if it's something I could realistically do on my phone while we're talking about it, it should not be in your fucking movie.
No, it's distracting. It's really distracting. I'm sitting there like, what's this fake effect you put in there? And, you know, it doesn't help that, like, a week ago, I rewatched Elm Street 3, which is another movie about a group of people in an insane asylum dealing with a killer.
Very kind of similar in several scenes.
Yeah, and that movie certainly had grit to it. It had marvelous effects work. It was a stylish as fuck movie, and also was about, not that I'm expecting this to get as dark as like Dream Warriors did with some of its characters, but when you're comparing the two, it certainly did. And Dream Warriors is a movie I always liked a lot, but one of the things I do like about it is that the kids in that movie are acting like kids with real severe fucking mental problems.
Yeah, like, the kids in that movie actually have issues. Like, this place here, there's like, it's such a weird fucking place. It's a huge goddamn building.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently there's like 3 staff members and like 5 patients.
Yeah, it's very sparse.
And they all, like, the one guy they say has like, I don't even know what the fuck, like, if they were going for, like, he has, like, multiple personality disorder, dissociative personality disorder, something like that. But he seemed mostly harmless, like, all the time. Like, even when he thought he was somebody else, he was still completely functioning normally for society.
Plus, dude, it's the worst staff, too. Because, I mean, it kind of does stuff like in Elm Street 3, where someone was obviously murdered, and they're like, well, clearly a suicide.
Yeah.
Like, it's, you know, it's also doing stuff like that. And, like, when the doctor hypnotizes Fiona Dourif and then he gets knocked out by Chucky, and later he's like, why'd you do that to me? And it's like, what did you think happened? The girl in the wheelchair under hypnosis somehow teleported behind you and hit you?
She's that crazy and dangerous.
Now, to get into spoiler talk real quick, there is something that happens towards the end, and it makes it really, really cool that it's Fiona Dourif playing this part. Like,
which I liked.
I appreciated this too, because she kind of becomes her dad, and to see her and Chucky have this laugh off, like, there are good things about this. There are some solid effects work in here. I like that they use a lot of animatronics in this film. But then some effects will be really good and others will be partly good, but with CGI touch-ups that, okay, take the part where on paper is a pretty good death scene where the window is crushed above the girl and glass rains down and it decapitates her. Now, there are like model heads and stuff and fake blood that goes into this scene, but for whatever reason, they mixed in digital effects. And I don't know if that says, well, you know, we can give them both. We can give them practical and digital. Why? Why do that? Because putting in this fake-ass glass effect with this cartoonish blood that comes up, when the blood is CGI in this particular part and a couple other parts too, you're not making me appreciate what looks good in this scene. You're just distracting me by what looks like a fucking cartoon.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm on board with, like, if you can go all practical, which, I mean, in this day and age is few and far between, but it always looks, like, even when it looks bad, it still looks better just in as much as it's a real thing that is there and happening. But, like, I'm fine with the idea of, like, doing practical with, like, CG touch-ups.
If it's seamless.
Yeah,
like
to help, like, integrate it into a scene or something like that. Like, or, you know, like, provide, like, a transition between, like, like, oh, here's where it's the actor, and then here's where it's, like, the model head that they're gonna, like, blow up or something like that. Like, I'm fine with that, but, yeah, like, this was, like, they couldn't, like, it wasn't like they used the CG to touch up the practical effects at times. It's like they just decided, like, we don't know how to pull this off practically, so just have somebody do a real quick, like, we'll do the effect of, like, the glass hitting her, and then we'll switch back to, like, somebody throwing a model head on the floor like a basketball.
It's like, I know this could be pulled off practically. I've seen Dario Argento do this same death scene, and it didn't look like a cartoon. But with that being said, there are good kill scenes that they do in this that do use practical effects, whether it's just people getting their bodies torn apart, or, like, you know, like drills going through heads and stuff like that. Like, even when you can see some maybe digital stuff here and there, like, there are still some death scenes that look really, really good in this. And like I said, I appreciated the use of animatronics in the film as well. The movie's fine. Like, it's not, of all the Child's Play movies, this is one that I can't see myself going back to. I didn't hate watching it by any means. I was never annoyed by it. It was just a movie that never gripped me, really. I don't know what tone this movie was going for.
Yeah, because it tries to play it a lot more serious, but Chucky is still Chucky, so he's still, like, cracking lame jokes, but I don't know, like, it just, they feel more out of place than they should sometimes. Not like not to the point of, like, it's ever distracting, but it's just, like, to the point that, like, you could have had him say something like actually interesting, but instead, like, you went for just like a cheap joke, and like, it just felt like they didn't know what to do with it. Like, they had the rest of it figured out, and they're like, what should we do for Chucky? I'm like, I don't know. I got 5 minutes. I'll write all his dialogue real quick in the margin.
And again, a movie like Elm Street 3 balanced that well between heroes that are dealing with stuff like psychological scarring and suicidal tendencies, and scenes where Freddy Krueger says, "Welcome to prime time, bitch," and turning a guy into a puppet, and doing the drug part with the hands and say, "Want to get high?" and then he acts like he's getting high on heroin when he kills. Like, that balance, like, one-liners and dealing with some interesting stuff with its main characters, while looking like Elm Street 3 was in a psych ward, while pulling that off just fine. This one, yeah, it feels like a set. It feels like there's only really a few people in this building.
Yeah, it's so like, it never feels like there's a bigger world out there. Like, it always feels just small in scope. Like, if they needed to turn this into, like, a stage play, it'd be the easiest fucking thing in the world.
It made me appreciate that Curse of Chucky, while having a tone that was certainly darker, and yeah, Chucky still did do have some one-liners and stuff like that in it, but Curse of Chucky was a pretty well-shot movie. Like, it really did seem very inspired by some Italian flicks, especially in what it was doing with its camera angles and things like that. It felt like a lot more thought went into the mood and the cinematography as a whole when compared to this movie. Like, it was easier for Curse to grab me by its story than this one did. This just kind of felt like, yeah, it's a lot of stuff that's happening, and it's not boring. It's kind of entertaining, and it's 80-some minutes and fine.
Yeah, and like I said, like, some of the shots, like, really do look like somebody was like really did have a good vision for it, really did want to do something cool.
Some of it does, yeah.
But it's like he was just like part-time, like, I was like, oh guys, I can fly in for the week and help out with some shots, but I can't be here for all the principal, I'm sorry.
It made me curious to see where it goes from here, though. Again,
yeah, well, like, and that's the biggest unfortunate part for me is that it's roughly an hour and a half long.
Mm-hmm.
The first hour just feels like the same thing over and over and over again. And then like the last half hour, it actually gets really interesting, especially like the last like lead out, like the last like 10 minutes or so, with his daughter there, like that like was really interesting to me. And then it's like, oh well, shit, well that's the end of that. Like,
this is
like, well, I'm curious, I guess, to see what the sequel does.
This is the dumbest hospital too. Like a simple security system or a security person who's not just on the outside of the building could clear all of this up so much. Oh, we're medium security, so we don't have security cameras. Like, what? That's not
I feel like even like a light security would still have some cameras.
Well, they even say at one point, like, we've had secret security cameras. You know where those tapes are, don't you? Like, people are dying left and right, and they're like, we know it's you, Fiona Dourif. Stop doing that. And then they go about their day and get killed later on. And then there's the girl who... This movie's also kind of like, don't look in the basement. The girl who is like missing her baby and is using a Chucky doll as a baby. You know, it's on Netflix. If you've seen all of them before, why stop now?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're a fan to this point, you are not going to be disappointed. But yeah, it had a lot of good ideas, but none that had enough screen time or stood out enough for me to like I said, like kind of like really like grab a hold of you. Like, I'm curious, like from the setup that it gives to like lead into the next one, like that seems like it'll be starting on an interesting footing to see where they go with that.
I'm curious to see where it goes from here. This one's just, it's a forgettable entry in this series, honestly. Like, I don't regret seeing it. I thought it was fine. We watched it at home and pulled it up on Netflix, and I was never mad. I never felt insulted by the movie or anything like that. It was fun seeing Chucky back again. It was what it was. It is a night... It's a movie you pull up because it's raining outside and you want to spend a night inside, and you just pop this thing up for however long the movie is.
Yeah, I feel like this one will eventually be like the Friday the 13th Part 5. Like, this is the new blood of this series. Like,
I'd rather watch.
It's like I
had more fun at Friday the 13th Part 5.
I'm just saying, like, it's no one's favorite one, but you've got to watch it to see what happens next.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Like,
okay.
It's one that if you decide to sit down, like, I'm gonna power through all these, you're gonna watch it. It's gonna be the one that like you spend half your time like, oh fuck, what's going on Twitter? What's going on? Oh shit. Oh god, I was gonna make a sandwich.
It's the Elm Street 5. I won't pause it.
Yeah. Oh fuck yeah.
It is. This is totally the Elm Street 5.
It's like oh shit, Roseanne just showed up. I got time.
That's 6.
Oh, that's
5 is the one where he's in has the scene in the comic book.
Oh,
about the pregnant girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like
with the
Dream Child, the Dream Child. 5, which is like my least favorite one, but if it's on, will I watch it? Sure.
I forgot. That's the one we watched at Sarah's baby shower.
It is, and I've already forgotten. I've seen that movie more than once. I forget it 5 minutes after watching it.
I don't know why I always throw it together with Freddy's Dead. I don't know why.
They're just one long movie.
Well, I remember the first 3 really well, and then New Nightmare. Shit happens and New Nightmare happens.
Well, let's jump into Leatherface, which is really easy to do for 2 reasons. One, a lot of Leatherface is in a mental institution as well, and you made the comment about the girl who thinks the Chucky doll is her baby in Cult of Chucky, going like
we spent half the movie like trying to think, like, she looks so fucking familiar, and we're like, oh,
like, I think it's just she looks like Lily Taylor.
She looks a lot like Lily Taylor, and then Leatherface opens
with Lily Taylor.
Lily Taylor right there. It's like, oh, well, there you have it.
Leatherface is this. We're not reviewing Leatherface Texas Chainsaw 3.
I could see where it'd be easy to make that confusion.
Yeah.
On account of the same fucking title.
Both are called Leatherface. Only this doesn't have a subtitle. It's okay, so this is the latest prequel of these movies, which is about
There's so much backstory to this series.
Every single one of these movies it's like own continuity that will connect to the first one, but not really to any of the other sequels necessarily, unless it's the 2 Platinum Dunes movies. But I have a feeling that of all, like, whenever we're gonna get a Chainsaw Massacre movie since the 2003 one, they're all going to look like those movies. They're all going to have that same look. Of all 3, I mentioned this earlier too, of the 3 movies that we watched tonight, this was the only one that looked like something I would see in theaters.
Yeah, it looked like they actually put a theatrical amount of, like, production value into it. Mm-hmm. But it also had, like, the most complete story. Granted, half the time the story made no sense, but it was there.
You know why this story, like, okay, so this movie takes place it starts out in 55,
and then
most
jumps to 65.
Most of it's in 65, and it's a prequel about Leatherface's, like, origins, and I know you're saying, like, why? Because, you know, I asked myself...
Haven't you always wondered?
I didn't even in Texas Chainsaw Massacre the beginning when that, like, I remember watching Chainsaw the beginning and going, oh, I guess that's why that guy doesn't have legs in the other one. Whatever. Like, this one, though, the plot of this is that, the Sawyer brothers end up in a mental institution in their youth because of some shit that went down with killing the sheriff's daughter. And then the 2 brothers, one of them's Leatherface, the 2 brothers escape with, like, a hostage and a couple of other patients once this riot breaks out. So they're going on kind of a killing spree, and they're being pursued by Stephen Dorff, who's the sheriff. And it's, honestly, this movie is better at doing things that Chainsaw 3D did, and Chainsaw 3D kind of fell flat on its face doing some of the similar shit that this movie did. This one, not that I think this is a great movie by any means, but it doesn't completely shit the bed like Chainsaw 3D did. Yeah. Honestly, I thought this movie was okay. This movie, it's not really getting any kind of bad buzz or good buzz. It's just something that's there.
Just a movie.
And having seen the movie, I can see that. I can't see anyone loving this movie, but at the same time, I don't see many people hating it.
Yeah, it didn't do anything to, like, really, like, offend me or anything. Like, it's like, oh, that would never fly in the actual Texas Chainsaw series.
The previous Chainsaw Massacre movie we had, Texas Chainsaw 3D, didn't seem to not even know when the first movie took place in. It seemed to suggest they think it took place in the 90s. This one's not that. I'll give it this. It knows the first one was made in the 70s.
But it does weird things. Like, it tries to take little bits of story elements and characterizations from all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies to, I don't know if it's trying to, like, just figure out a way to put all the shit back in the box or what.
There's a character in this movie who is... It can't be McConaughey's character from Chainsaw Next Generation, because this scene takes place in 55, but there is a character in this that is doing
the father.
Yeah.
Which, if he's playing the father that we know from, like, 1 and 2, there's no fucking way that lines up, but this guy, he's, like, practically a dead ringer for McConaughey, he is definitely doing a McConaughey from part 4.
Yeah, and a good job at it, mind you. I actually kind of wish he was in the movie more.
Yeah, honestly, or hell, if they were doing a movie with McConaughey where they need a flashback, like, just use this guy.
And there's one guy who pops up later who appears like he's supposed to be the hitchhiker. What I liked about this is it just kind of let that guy be there. Like it didn't.
It never focused on him. He was just there. But yeah, just
and I enjoyed that.
So many odd little things like here and there were taken. Like I didn't even think of it at the time. But the whole thing about, like, a Texas lawman whose daughter got killed and he's on the hunt for the... Like, that's Dennis Hopper from Part 2.
I checked to see, like, if it was the same character
name.
And no. And here, okay, here's another thing. Before I forget, because this kind of leads into this, too. A problem you'll run into with doing a prequel to a story like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it was a problem that the Chainsaw the Beginning had, and it's a problem this one kind of has too. And it's that the only way that it makes sense for this to be a prequel is that none of our heroes can live by the end of this movie. There's not going to be any survivors in terms of the, like, good guys that we're following.
Yeah. There
couldn't possibly be. And it's a problem this movie kind of runs into as well. Maybe not to the extent of Chainsaw the Beginning, but
it does sort of like bottle like what you're able to do. Like just, I mean, anytime you're doing something, like anytime you're doing a prequel, you know, you have an idea of where it has to end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I'm watching, you know, like Revenge of the Sith. Well, it has to end with, you know, fucking Anakin Skywalker getting all chopped up.
Uh-huh.
It can't end with him being perfectly fine.
And none of these chainsaws, like, in the original Chainsaw Massacre, like, they were very much in secret, you know? They're doing this relatively incognito from outside society. They're the people that they're going after in the first one are, you know, they're driving through and everything. They're not, the family's not shitting where they eat, really, to a loud extent. In every single sequel, it's this one too, and it's a prequel.
Well, Part 2, the first time we see Leatherface, they're like chasing people down the highway in like a monster truck, and like the father is like also like the barbecue or chili cook-off champion in Texas or something.
That one gets away with it because that's a comedy. like that one's certainly a comedy. It gets away with shit like that.
Yeah, like 3 definitely goes back to it being like low-key, like secretive type thing. 4 is just, I don't even know. 4 is just 4.
4 is great, is what 4 is. But I've seen that movie many times, and it is largely because of Matthew McConaughey. But goddamn, he is one of the best villains in the entire series.
They're doing all this wacky shit, and they're doing it pretty much with like within like an easy drive of just a normal town. Like all the other ones make it seem like they're out in the middle of fucking nowhere. Well, except for, again, 2, where they're like living in
Christmas cave.
Yeah, where they're living in like this abandoned like theme park or some shit.
And I wish there would be one that was, because the first one, just the scariest fucking movie ever made. Like the first one, it just looks like something that's happening. It looks like you're there witnessing this shit.
Like at least one of those people did actually die.
Yeah.
Like, you're just sure of it. It's so like the film just even like looks like it should be like hot and greasy smelling. Like,
oh god, yeah. It looks like death. It looks like something you've discovered in an attic and you're not sure you should be watching this. Like, it's the most disturbing fucking movie ever made. It's just a perfect horror film. And the sequels that have come after it, even the ones I like, they all look like a movie. Like this one too. Like, it looks like a movie. It looks like, granted, yeah, it looks the most stylish and theatrical of the 3 that we've watched tonight.
It didn't have any scenes that looked like somebody filmed it on their phone.
No, not at all. Like, and one thing it does do better than Chainsaw 3D did, because Chainsaw 3D was like almost trying to turn them into like the Devil's Rejects, where they're now anti-heroes and the villains are the evil cops or something. And in Chainsaw 3D it was like, oh, those bastard cops, they killed that cannibal family. Okay, go get them, cuz. Whatever. This one, is kind of trying to do something similar where Stephen Dorff is the sheriff and he's a psychopath and he just in cold blood shoots the convict in the head. The reason this movie does it better is a couple reasons. One, it addresses the fact Stephen Dorff turns into a psychopath in this. And two, it gives that a reason for happening, because his daughter is the one killed at the beginning of the movie, so it at least has a bit of backstory, a bit of context to him kind of ending up as a madman in this.
Yeah, it's not like that scene never happened, and whenever they broke out, they just happened to sick like the craziest like lawman in Texas on him. You know, like it wasn't some sort of like natural born killers type situation.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely set up like this guy has deep ties to this family, and they've both fucked over each other like in escalating ways over the years apparently. And it's just driven him just completely fucking crazy. But as long as he's got that tin star on his chest, like, he gets to say what goes.
Right, yeah. And like, you can't really blame him in certain regards for, like, going as off the deep end as he fucking does in this. It doesn't straight up make the characters try to look like heroes, the Sawyer family. It doesn't straight up try making them look like they're the heroes of the film like fucking Chainsaw 3D did, because don't do that. Jesus Christ. Don't make Ed Gein smile in his grave.
It's like they finally got it right.
Yeah. And you know what? It was actually a little more believable. Spoiler territory here right now for Leatherface. It was honestly a little more believable when they were making you think that the long-haired fat kid was Leatherface. And
the guy that looked like he was just Junior Gunnar Hansen.
Yeah. Yeah, not when we find out, like, Leatherface was relatively well-spoken and sort of handsome when he was younger. I don't know about that movie.
Before he just boiled down his life to weird grunts and squealing. And being just super weird. Like, before that, he was a perfectly, like, even despite the fact that he grew up in, like, a fucking sanitarium, he seemed perfectly fine. Like, he was just a normal guy.
The only thing that's realistic about that, though, is at least, like, it was more believable that the Leatherface that we're following in this is the more adult version of that kid we saw in the beginning. Because when they were making you think it was like baby Hurley from Lost, I was like, that kid didn't grow up into that dude. Well, it turns out he didn't. So I guess I'll give the movie that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also glad that it didn't do the fucking Rob Zombie Halloween thing of going even more extreme, where it's like, oh yeah, he goes in as like some like 10-year-old shithead, and he comes out as fucking 7 foot tall, 6 foot wide Tyler Mane.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Like, fuck off with that.
That makes sense.
This is, I don't know where I would rank this. I wouldn't put this towards the bottom of the Chainsaw Massacre movies. I like this is way better than 3D. I like it better. I think it's a better movie than the 2 Platinum Dunes ones. I probably liked it better than 3. I'd rather watch 2. I mean, it goes without saying it's not as great as the first one, but I like the second one better than this. I have more fun at the 4th one too.
Oh yeah.
Than this, like, but the movie was better than I thought it was going to be. I can see why there's not much, pardon the pun, I can see why there's not much buzz about the fucking movie. Sorry.
Texas Buzzsaw Massacre.
That's the Asylum one. I can see why because again, there's nothing insulting about it, like Chainsaw 3D, that makes you want to rant about the thing, but it's also not one of the best horror movies I've seen this year.
Again, like, it's kind of the Friday the 13th Part 5 for me. Like, it is another entry that if I was watching through them, I would probably watch it. But I have nothing really to comment about. Like,
I liked seeing Stephen Dorff back. I love Stephen Dorff. Stephen Dorff got to be a crazy sheriff in a couple of scenes. That was cool. Oh my God, there was Finn Jones as
the immortal Iron Fist, who's very mortal in this.
God, as the immortal barbecue fist in the movie. Like, okay, I can't buy Finn Jones as the Iron Backstreet Boy. I sure as shit don't buy him as a Texan sheriff's deputy.
It's a hard-edged law dog.
God. Lenny was sitting up there like, is that fucking Danny Rand?
She gets all of her dialogue from the Meachums.
Yeah, he didn't have the Meachums here to carry him through this film.
I would have been fine with him being one of those deputies if they would have thrown in just a quick, like, throwaway line, like, it's like, it's a rough week to start on the force. It's like, I'm okay now. That's why he doesn't fit in with every other person on his team.
Yeah, exactly. He still looks like Danny Rand, except he's got his locks kind of combed down a little bit. All right, so third and final one. We finally saw a movie that we saw a trailer for like 5 years ago. Amityville The Awakening is a movie that you can finally watch because it's on Google Play now. We saw this trailer theatrically what feels like an eternity ago. There were posters for this thing for the past, again, few years at the movie theater.
I kept feeling like it came out and we forgot about it, and then I'd see a trailer for it again. It's like, oops, somebody spliced in an old one, and then it would have a future date on it. I'm like, or not. It's like, are they bringing it back? Is this a Fathom event?
No, they did like Jeepers Creepers 3. Yeah. That didn't come to Springfield.
Well, no, just like when they do like, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do like, it's like our throwback movies, you know, like next week is Risky Business.
Hell
and
yeah.
then we're doing like Taxi Driver, and then Amityville Awakening. Like, wasn't that a year old? Like, yeah, whatever.
No, it's the 10th anniversary for this movie that just premiered on Google Play. I like that this is a Amityville movie, but also a remake of Patrick. You remember Patrick?
Mind Quad.
Yeah. God, Patrick Still Lives makes more sense than this movie. It's Jennifer Jason Leigh, which going from girl who looks like Lily Taylor in Cult of Chucky to Lily Taylor in Leatherface to Jennifer Jason Leigh in this makes honestly like we really picked a good order for these.
Yeah.
So they move. Jennifer Jason Leigh moves her daughter Bella Thorne and McKenna Grace and the brother who is in a coma. They move into the Amityville house, and
Amityville happens.
And Amityville starts happening through Coma Kid, and it's why is Jennifer Jason Leigh in this movie? That is so weird. Granted, she does add a level of dignity to this movie that it would not have without her.
Yeah, she does bring a certain gravitas to her performance. Like, she has that right amount of stern scowl that it's believable. Like, she does look like she cares, but she's pissed.
Yes.
That is a hard thing to pin down sometimes.
She slaps the shit out of Bella Thorne in this movie.
She fucking just nails that bitch.
Yeah, It's one of the few scenes where Bella Thorne characters were not, that the camera's not totally focused on her ass.
Should point out that roughly 50% of this film is her just wearing like a loose t-shirt or tank top or camisole and very, very tiny panties.
She's the babysitter from the remake. It's
well, apparently she's the babysitter from that Netflix movie, The Babysitter.
I still haven't seen that.
But
look,
it makes it super creepy. Like, we noticed at the top of the film, it's like, oh, Dimension Films. We're like, oh no, this is a Harvey Weinstein production. And then it's like 45 minutes of this 90-minute movie is basically like upskirt shots. It's like, oh no.
dude,
It's like, when you think about it, when you know, it's like, I feel so bad about watching this.
oh, come on, dude. I mean, it's not like it's Clown House.
You say that about every film.
Hell or High Water was really good. Yeah, it was even better than Clown House. So why do you keep
can't
bringing
disagree.
What the fuck?
I mean, when you're right, you're right. I mean,
this is a really forgettable fucking haunted house movie. And Jennifer Jason Leigh being in this movie is like if Meryl Streep was in The Apparition. Like, what?
well, and with The Apparition, this one does the same thing. Is like, when you don't know what to do that's interesting, just cut to someone in their panties.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
there's a couple of interesting things about this movie. I like the sorry to say this a third time, spoiler alert on this. I like that Jennifer Jason Leigh's character has given all hope that her son is going to come out of this coma, so she's lost her faith in God. So she does... The most logical conclusion is that she moves them into the Amityville house, knowing what it is, because she hopes that whatever force lives in the house will breathe life into her son, that she wants to come out of this coma. I've seen that done before, but I don't know. I liked it here. And it had a lot to do with Jennifer Jason Leigh's performance. It is weird seeing a movie this stupid and lame bring up the DeFeo murders so much, to the point to where the DeFeo murders are reenacted with Coma Kid at the end of the movie with a shotgun, and why Jennifer Jason Leigh, knowing all this stuff, decided it was a good idea to keep a shotgun in this house beats the fuck out of me.
Well, if she didn't have a gun in there, how would he shoot everybody?
True.
Well, and they also, like, show footage from, you know, like, the actual, like, DeFeo murder stuff.
They showed the funerals, yeah, and, like, news clippings.
And then...
It's not that, and you know what? It's not that I'm against using real footage in movies and stuff like that. Or even doing, like... Because, look, I like the Amityville movies, and the Amityville movies wouldn't exist if this thing didn't happen. So it's not like this is the first time that that's been brought up in something. It is jarring, though, when you see that in a movie this lame.
Yeah, it's like you just keep falling back on actual footage of horrible, horrible things happening.
Which can certainly be done fine in the right movie. Like, it can.
But I feel like
but in this movie where half of the movie is Bella Thorne's ass.
It's like, that's the whole reason that they didn't use, like, the Tate LaBianca murders as a framing device for The Apparition.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that would have made for a better movie.
It fucking would have, and I would be like, it's fucking entertaining. Like, I would give this, if this movie was entertaining, that'd be one thing. It's really not, but there is one thing, and it's really the only thing you can kind of talk about with this movie. Like, okay, look, I've seen worse Amityville movies. It's not as bad as Curse. It's not as bad as,
it's way better than, like, Amityville Terror.
Yeah, it's better than Terror, it's better than Curse, it's better than Dollhouse. Like, but they do a thing in this movie where Bella Thorne is in her school, and she's friends with a couple of other teenagers who are interested in the Amityville house.
It takes an interesting twist.
And the kid who's talking to Bella Thorne goes, you mean like in this movie? And he holds up a DVD of the Amityville Horror, the first movie. And we're sitting there like, wait, okay, so so the movies exist in this universe? Okay, there is no excuse why Bella Thorne is so goddamn confused about what this house is, where it came from, and like she has to find out about everything to do with this house.
Yeah, it's just so fucking weird to me because I feel like the whole Amityville story is one of those things that's like well known enough that even if you aren't immediately familiar with it, you've heard of it.
Especially in this, because the movie franchise exists in this movie's universe, which also makes it weird that they're not having to deal with, like, movie fans and tourists and stuff like that around this house.
Well, the fact that whenever she's like, she decides to do some research because people, like, she keeps hearing murmurings from people about the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, she goes to the library and does some research. It looks like she just typed in Amityville murders and was watching, like, old news clips. But I'm like, didn't she think it was weird when the first, like, 20,000 things that came up on Google were things about the movie?
The scariest part in this movie is the part where they're watching the first movie. Like, it shows them watching a couple of scenes from the first movie, and I'm sitting there like, you're right, I should be watching the first one. Especially because they redo the fly scene in this movie, and it looked cool in the first one. It looked great, and it was suspenseful. In this, it's a bunch of cartoonish-ass CGI flies that fly, which what could have been a creepy scene where they find maggots and flies underneath the kid's back, under his bed sores, it's ruined by these cartoon flies flying out at Kurtwood Smith and shit. It looks terrible. Like, the movie from 1979 kicked your ass in terms of special effects.
But yeah, it's and I know I've mentioned this so many fucking times, but it's such a fucking, like, cardinal rule is don't show a better movie inside your bad movie. But don't show a better movie from the franchise this one is in the same movie. Like, I don't even know how to fucking like I don't even know how to fucking quantify that. It's like those, like, 4D shapes, like those, like, tetrahedrons where they just keep, like, churning in on themselves. It's like I don't know how to explain this, but, like, it's like a fucking Amityville turducken. Like,
you know what broke
at a point, like, it's not even like, because she hasn't heard of any of this at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes this kid who lives in that town be like, oh, boom, Brolin, Amityville Horror. It's like, or we could watch Amityville 2, or we could watch the remake with Ryan Reynolds. Like, you're going to tell me she's never heard of any of these movies?
Yeah, he brings up the second movie and he goes, I brought this because, you know, it's kind of a prequel. And then he holds up a DVD copy of the Ryan Reynolds one. He goes, oh, and I also got the remake. And then Bella Thorne and the other girl goes, ugh, no, remakes suck. And the other kid goes, I agree. And I go, okay, pot calling the kettle a shitty movie. You know what Amityville movie is better than this? The remake. The remake is a better movie than this film.
Well, but he's also before they go to watch the movie,
why did he even bring the DVD of the remake other than that stupid joke?
But, like, he mentions, like, oh, come on, like, it's like we gotta we gotta watch the movie, you know? It's like just a bunch of friends hanging out watching a scary movie. It's honestly one of the best things in the world to do. We're just sitting there like, God, stop telling us how to watch movies.
Right?
Like, I know how this works. Like, oh, because it's like we're sitting on the couch watching it together. Like,
I'm watching this because it's my job, not because I want to.
Like, I just wanted him to just turn, like, face to camera, like,
oh, I like, too, how he thinks that the movie is like a blueprint for that, meaning, like, he seems to be under the impression the movies were filmed in the house, in the actual house. That's why he didn't want to watch the remake. That wasn't the same house. That was a mansion with the same fucking windows.
It's like, oh, man, like, I've seen the movie, like, dozens of times, but I never thought I'd be inside. Like, wow. It's like...
That annoyed me so much about this film. It really fucking did. Like... At least there wasn't a part in Cult of Chucky where they're holding up DVDs of the other movies.
Yeah. Have you seen this documentary on Charles Lee Ray?
Honestly, that would have made more sense in that movie, because in Seed of Chucky, they were making a Chucky movie.
True. Well, at least they pointed out the fact that it is Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah. Or what if in Texas Chainsaw 3D, if they were like, well, it could be worse, they hold up a copy of 3 on a meat hook. Even then, I'd be like, yeah, ass, I'd rather watch 3 on a meat hook. And half of that movie is a guy watching a concert. Amityville Awakening is, like, I don't know what all went into this movie getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. Like, the Snowman is a way bigger, like, editing fucking nightmare of a mess than this movie is. This movie is, it's got a beginning, middle, and end. Like, it is what it is. This movie's not, like, sitting on the shelf for 4 years disaster. It's just kind of lame. And given it's a Blumhouse movie, I'm like, okay, it couldn't have had a budget more than $5 million. Like, why didn't you just put, it's got the Amityville name on it. It probably could have made $5 million on an opening weekend.
Yeah, it could have earned that just trading on name only.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially like if it would have come out when it was supposed to have come out, because it has very, very, very similar elements to this one as like Shut In and
it does, and Patrick
Patrick. Well, like especially like here from like the last like year, like Shut In and Disappointments Room, which were basically the same fucking movie there.
This was better than the Disappointments Room, I'll give it that.
No, but that's my thing. Like, if this one had actually come out when it was fucking supposed to have, like, it would have beaten them to the punch. But as it is, like, since it just kept getting, like, and it eventually comes out, it's like, oh, yeah, this is, like, 3 other movies I've seen in the past year.
And like the Disappointments Room, I think the best scene in this movie, other than the scene where they watch the first film, the best scene in this movie was a dinner scene. That, like, kind of dream part where it was, like, they're this happy family in the Amityville house, and the coma kid is up walking around and talking like normal, and it's playing Rock Me Gently. Like, I kind of wanted more of that. Like, maybe expand on that a little bit. That was fairly well done. And I did like the effects they were doing with the kid's body. I like that that they made him look like he has been in a coma for 2 years.
Yeah, because I've seen things before where, you know, it's like something like that, and they're just fine, like, well, fuck, what was that Seagal film?
Hard to Kill.
Hard to Kill.
Yeah.
He's in a fucking coma for like 10 years. Like, he gets up and kicks some dude's ass and runs away. Like, alright. But even like, watching Cult of Chucky earlier, like the main girl Nika, like her thing is like she mentions like that one orderly even asks, she was like, oh, were you in an accident? It's like, no, I was born this way. It's like her legs look perfectly fucking fine. Even to like the point like whenever she decides to get up and start walking out of her wheelchair.
This kid looked like he was shriveled. Like there's a good effect that they have at the end too, where now when he gets up with the shotgun and starts blasting his family,
the house like revitalizes him.
Yeah, he's got like a 6-pack and stuff like that. But then at the end when he's dragged on the lawn, like he kind of shrivels back up into what. It was a well done effect, I thought. I appreciated that about the movie. I think we've seen a lot worse in terms of horror movies this year than this.
Yeah.
Really, like, I mean, this movie's not good. It has no reason for existing. But
well, and definitely not for going to a theater.
No, this did not feel like this did not feel theatrical. I'm sure it probably could have made $5 million, maybe, but it didn't look theatrical.
Yeah, it should just continue doing what Amityville movies have been doing for years and just coming out on video.
Yeah. Honestly, video is a good place for a film like this. I would say of the three, my final thought of the three we watched, there was none of these three movies. I didn't love any of them. I didn't hate any of them either. Leatherface, I think, was the better of the three that we watched.
Yeah, kind of taking stock of them all. Like, it's easily the one that like has the most rewatchability, and it was at the time like watching them, like it was the one that like held my interest, I think, the most.
It's the most ambitious. It's the most good looking out of all three of them.
Because the Amityville one, it never really looked bad, but it never really looked like they were like it looked like it was being filmed for like TV, honestly. Like if it had debuted as like if this was like a 2-hour pilot for like Amityville the TV series.
It didn't look bad, but it looked January passable.
like there was a very jarring scene at the end where, you know, the day is saved and Bella Thorne and her sister are okay, and they're outside like talking about like what they're gonna do. But for some reason they picked the worst spot in the fucking world to be like their back and forth that they're framing, because they're outside in their yard at night, but both of them are facing directions where there's like nothing behind them. So so it looks like this final scene takes place in just like the inky black void of space. It's just these two and just literally pitch black behind them. It's like, where the fuck are you?
They're in reshoot room. Maybe, I don't know. That was a little weird. But someone in the chat just goes, Amityville, the forest.
Yes.
That's what I mean. It looked January good. Yeah, I would say Amityville was probably the least of the three that we watched. I guess it was like
Leatherface was the most well made, and like I said, like the most ambitious. And Chucky, I mean, it was a Child's Play movie. Like it
did Fiona Dorff having a good time in it.
Yeah, I said, I could have done more with like if the last like half hour was more of the film. Like, I would have been cool with that, or doing more with her character, you know, like there in that last part.
Alex Vincent is slowly but surely getting his acting chops back. He's better here than
slowly but surely being in this film.
Yeah, like he was great in the first two Child's Play movies, and then when he came back in Curse, it felt like, okay, it doesn't seem like he's probably acted in a really long time, because he didn't.
So he haven't had much to do since like 90, 91.
Yeah, so the line readings weren't great at the end of Curse. In this, it's a little bit better.
Although that dinner scene at the beginning was fucking awkward and awful.
Oh, at the beginning of Cult of Chucky. Yeah, where it starts out where him talking about his gun collection, and then he's on a date and she says, I Googled you, why didn't you tell me about any of this? And then he tells her about it, and she
fucking Google,
and then he leaves. Or no, then she leaves.
Well, no, it's like why didn't you tell me about any of this? It's like, what happened? And then he's like, oh, well, you know, like, back when I was a kid, like, my babysitter died. You know, some cops and my neighbors. And then, like, 40 other people that I've known throughout my life now have died because of this. She's like, I can't do this anymore. It just gets up and leaves. It's like, yeah, that's why he didn't fucking tell you, idiot. It's like, why didn't you say anything about all these murders in your life? I'm like, because you'd react like anybody would if I told you that 40-some people have died by being in a proximity to me.
Then he gave her an autograph of my family treasure. So, alright, that's our triple feature of the night. It's not hard to find these movies. We've got...
It's only hard to watch them.
Not even that, really. Like, I didn't... it was easier to watch these than it was The Ginger Dead Man, which is the last movie we watched over here. We got Jigsaw coming up in a couple days. Any final thoughts?
I'll be glad to see a horror franchise that at least seems like it's coming back with enough oomph to get into a theater.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic.
Thanks a bunch, everyone in the chat, for watching. If you want to subscribe, to us, we're at youtube.com/stonedgremlin-productions, so you can get alerts. Follow us on Twitter at the Cinema Snob, because I typically write down around the time that we'll start doing it live. It's usually kind of a within a margin of error guess, because we don't know how many trailers we're gonna have in front of a movie. But if you want to get a sense of what times we're gonna be doing these live, then follow us on Twitter over at the Cinema Snob, and we'll see you later.